Hello, hello. I am so excited that you're here. We are talking about sales, creativity, and your path to mastery. So today's episode is really, really awesome. If you are new here, welcome to my channel. I am Kate Volman. I share ideas, inspiration, and tips to help you live a more creative and fulfilling life. So if you want to check out some of my videos, I do book recommendations, journaling prompts, and just some fun stuff. If you want to check it out and subscribe, I would love for us to stay connected. I have started to, a couple months ago, I started live streaming my podcast on my YouTube channel as well. So that is what we are doing today. Create for No Reason is the name of my podcast. So you can listen, you can watch here, you can listen anywhere you can get your podcasts. All the places. That is where you can find me. And I'm so excited because we've been doing this show and I've had some really interesting guests. We talk about creativity. We talk about the writing process. We talk about living a fulfilling life. And so it's really fun to hear from other people that are doing incredible work, that are out there in the world, that are putting their work out into the world, no matter what. And that is exactly what one of my guests does today. I'm so excited to introduce you to my friend, David Hill. He is a success certified business coach and Cardone University sales trainer. David has been a top producing real estate agent for over 18 years, a phone sales trainer with over 36 years experience in multiple industries. He is the host of the Path to Mastery podcast. Guests have included Gary V, Mel Robbins, Grant Cardone, Tim Storey, myself, and many others. He is a really incredible person, and I am so excited to have a conversation with him today. So, David Hill, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Kate. It's an honor to be here. Super fun. And hey, I'm in, I don't know if you want me to do this or not, but I have a room ready to go in Clubhouse if you want to stream the Clubhouse, but
Oh
it's up
my
to
gosh,
you.
you're so funny.
I
Hey,
don't want to do it without asking first. So
let's do it. I'm
you want
I'm
me?
happy to do
All
it.
right, let's go. Just why not, right? Get some more traffic to your podcast. So I added you as a mod if you want to jump in. It's up to
Jump
you.
in.
I hate to disrupt your podcast. Hopefully you're cool with the go with the flow
Go
like
it's
this.
it's go with the flow. And I think what is cool about this is it's all about creativity, right? It's like, oh, David is just going to start let's record it here. We're on YouTube, we're on the podcast, and now we're on Clubhouse, and it's just, hey, this is part of what we do for the show. I think it's for so many creators that listen to the show, it's a good reminder that it just sometimes it just happens the way it needs to happen.
That's it. Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
All right. Well, so I will jump on. Oh, I think my phone is going to die, so that's not good. That would have been helpful, but if I
It's all
actually
right.
had it, if I actually had it charged. But David, I'm so excited to have this conversation. Just last week, I got to chat with. We were in the same. We used StreamYard to record, and we were on uh, David's podcast. So definitely check out
That
Path
was
to
awesome.
Mastery.
That was
You've
good.
interviewed some really cool people on the show. But before we dive into even that, I am curious to know, David, to you, what does it mean to live a creative and fulfilling life?
Yeah, that's I think, just creative is just showing up, being yourself, having fun, being willing to to get uncomfortable sometimes. I think we have to be willing to do that. I find that, whenever I've done something that's either put me in a place of uncomfortability or challenged myself in certain ways is when I felt the most fulfilled in my life. I like, example, like, even being on Clubhouse, like sometimes there's a lot of people on Clubhouse that want to speak but they don't speak, they don't say anything, and they're sitting back listening, and they're in fear and they don't raise their hands, and I tell people, hey, just do it. I says, if you do it, it's gonna feel amazing, but you got to get over that fear and just do it. Just raise your hand, and that's just a metaphor for life, right? I mean, Clubhouse is probably the least thing anybody needs to worry about, but yet people do, and I think it's just a great way to kind of get started with some of that stuff. And yeah, so for me, I think creativity is just getting outside of my comfort zone, and every morning I journal, and I want to be a better version of myself, and and I want to challenge myself a little bit. And I actually used a Brendan Bouchard planner, and there's there's a question I struggle with every single day, and it's I don't remember the exact question because I should know it by heart but it's on my desk over there, but I'm not going to go grab it. But essentially, it's what are you going to do today to expand your comfort zone? Like, what are you going to do today to get outside of your comfort zone? And every day I'm just like, oh man, that's a hard question to answer. But to me, that's creativity, right? Like just being able to go with the flow. And same, and I work with salespeople, and the salespeople that do the best are the ones that can just be with people and just, hey, go with the flow. I mean, know what you're talking about, obviously. Be a professional, be there to help people. But when you can just be with people and, and trust me, I wasn't always like that. I struggled for a long time. But I don't know. That's a long answer, but I think that's my answer.
It's a great answer. And I love that you already brought up fear. In fact, so David and I are kind of like book buddies. I feel like we're always reading books and very similar books. We've read many of the same books. And you mentioned the Art of Impossible by Stephen Kotler.
Yeah,
and actually David is interviewing Stephen on his podcast. I'm so excited
for you.
Did you connect
with him? Did you connect with that person?
I will. Okay. And I cannot wait, especially because I wanted to start reading the book. So I'm actually listening to it on my walks. And what I was listening to this morning was he was talking about fear and how everyone deals with fear and how it of course we're going to have fear, but it depends on how we use that fear. And so he talks about how use that fear to your advantage, lean into it, use it as excitement because it's pushing you forward. It's breaking you out of that comfort zone. And so often we tend to, when we have fear, we back away. But what was interesting is in the book, he talks about how the pain is actually wanting to avoid the fear. If you let yourself sit in the fear, you can break through it and push through it, which I totally love that because it reminded me of that story of the Buddha, how like the Buddha sat under the Bodhi tree and he like invited those feelings to sit and have tea. And if you invite those feelings to kind of sit with you, only then can you get over them. Because if you're always trying to avoid them, it's worse. And so I love how you explain this, like, and it's such a great question that Brendan poses in his journal about how are you going to break out of that comfort zone. And David, I feel like it's probably a good thing that it's a challenge for you to answer every day, right? Because it means that you're continuing to expand every single day. And that's kind of what your podcast is about, right? Like path to mastery.
Well, it's funny that for a while, what my answer was, it was, speak up in a room on Clubhouse that I normally don't speak up in, or a room that I don't, you know what I mean? And just little things like that make a difference. And then before you know it, it gets easier to do that.
And now David's running rooms. You're like Mr. Clubhouse.
Yeah. Well, I don't know if I'm Mr. Clubhouse, but yeah, I mean, I'm definitely, I mean, I definitely have gotten, I've gotten comfortable with it, right? I've done it enough that I understand it. The interesting thing about Clubhouse is, by the way, we're on Clubhouse now. There's 50 people in the room, and I'm being interviewed live, which normally I do the interviewing, but this time Kate, appreciate this, is interviewing me. So we're live podcast right now. So if anybody wants to come up, you can actually ask a question of me or Kate if you want to come up.
I love that. I have to. Yeah, I have to.
Sorry, I just took over your podcast. My apologies,
David. This is what happens when two podcasters come together. Is that
so? But what I was gonna, I forgot what I was even gonna say. Now it had something to do with Clubhouse. But
you were talking about how you just getting the courage to speak up in a room.
Yeah,
it's such a small thing, but how it leads to much bigger things. Like sometimes it seems like a small thing, but at the time it's not. Like if you've never spoken up, if you've never gotten on stage, if there's something that you haven't done, then it's like, oh my gosh, there's so much fear on it. Now, after you've done it a few times, you're like, I can't believe I was even scared to do that. It's so easy now.
Yeah. Well, there are still some places in Clubhouse that I don't say a lot. So maybe that's what I need to do. Well, at the other side of that too, is sometimes I don't need to speak. And so I think I also have to remember that. Because there's been times, honestly, where I've spoken up and I was like, I probably shouldn't even have said anything. Like, you know what I mean? And so I think sometimes you don't want to, I don't want to speak just to speak. And I think a lot of people do that. you know?
Oh, what do you mean you think? You know, a lot of people do that. People love to hear themselves talk.
Yeah,
And it is those that are silent sometimes that when they speak, you're like, whoa, like they actually have something to say. So I'd rather be that
yeah,
kind of person than
yeah.
someone that always shares, even though, I
Uh,
mean, are you really adding that much value? But
I, well, I feel like I'm on point when I do share, and I share from the heart, or if I feel like what I can share can help somebody. But I remember I think it was like last week. I was in a space and I was listening for a long time, and I was running on appointments. It was in my car, and I was just listening. And it was a good conversation, and I just really wanted to add something to the conversation. So I waited for the right time and jumped in, and then I just realized after sharing that I probably just should have listened, to be honest with you. But who knows? Maybe it's just me being a hard. I'm tough on myself too, so
yeah, you
that doesn't
are.
always help. I think we talked about that on my podcast. That it doesn't always help your creativity when you're super tough on yourself.
Yeah. No, and what I love about the fact that you journal, and this is why I think journaling is so great, is at the end of the day, you can journal about that stuff, right? Like I was in a situation where I was in a meeting, I felt very uncomfortable the way that it went, the way like just it did not go the way that I wanted to go for so many reasons. And instead of being upset, which I was, and I was annoyed at myself, and I was like, I should have done this. Like I got really, I was on the drive home, I
Yeah,
was like just like beating myself up. I'm like, well, this is not productive. So I went home and I started journaling, and I started journaling. Okay, what are you going to do the next time this same situation happens?
yeah,
Because it's going to happen again, because that is life. And then only from journaling can I figure out, okay, this is what I'm going to do to get better. And so you can't beat yourself up over that stuff. You can only learn from it
100,
and grow from it. Which, David, I have to say, I feel like
100%.
you are so, I feel like you have a lot of wisdom. I feel like you are someone who the way that I take you is you do speak up when you do have something important to share. And when you do share, you speak from a place of experience, and you speak from a place of knowledge, where I think other people kind of just talk to talk, but you can tell that you've experienced a lot, that you've gone through a lot, that you have put in the work. Like that's what I gather from you, because it's always very thoughtful. So I'm curious, you have a podcast called Path to Mastery. Like what is first of all, can you ever reach mastery in anything, and why was it important for you to start this podcast?
I don't think you can reach mastery. My friend Shawnee just popped in the room, so now I get someone to help in the room.
Oh my
Yeah.
gosh, should I go get my, you know what? You're making me want to
So
go.
if so here's the thing with path to mastery is my belief is it's a never ending journey of just continuing to evolve and evolve and evolve and evolve and just get better and learn. Like, listen, like I kind of beat myself up a little bit, like I said earlier about that. And then after I'm just like, okay, well, hey, you know what? So what? Move on, right? Move forward. Next time, maybe I won't, but I'm not gonna not do it, right? I'm not gonna like I'll take that for a couple minutes, learn from it, like you said, with journaling, which is critical. Because that's a big part of it too, is what there's another couple questions in there, like what could I have done better today? How could I have connected with more, somebody on there's some really deep questions that really make you think. So I love, because you had to start of the day, you have your questions, and then at the end of the day, you have your questions, and they're deep, and it just makes you think. So yeah, I mean, listen, beat yourself up for 2 minutes and then move on, right?
Yeah,
I wish I
that's
could
it.
say I wish I said I'd never beat myself up, but I'd be lying to you if I said that. So at least I've put a time limit on it.
Yeah, we all do it. So David, what is something that you have discovered over the past month? What is something new that you learned, that you found interesting, and that you've been able to use in your life?
Oh, that's a good question. Over the past month, what have I learned? Hmm. This is going to sound like a weird question, or an answer, I mean, but I'm not saying it to be, I'm only saying it because it's something that's occurred to me. And I'm saying it like seriously, I mean this from the bottom of my heart. Like it occurred to me the other day. I'm actually really good at coaching people. And I didn't, and it, because I'm willing to go really deep with people, and I'm willing to just, and I'm saying that because it clicked. And part of it because I was in my head about it. And honestly, I've been doing a lot more coaching, a lot more training over the past couple of years. And I love training. I love training. I love being on stage. I love teaching. And it's different. Coaching and teaching are two completely different things. But I realized that I'm actually really good at coaching people. And the reason I say that is because of two coaching conversations that I've had over the past week or so. And people came out of it and just thanked me. And I was just like, wow, I was almost like, where did that come from? But I don't really have to think where it came from because I've been in that space for probably 8 or 9 years. You know, I've done skills camps. I was a coach for another company for a while. So I think that was one of the things that it was nice. It was nice. But at the same time, you know, I had David Spizak on my podcast last week, which was great. And he said something to me that stuck with me too. He says, don't be buying all your own stuff. So
What did he say?
He said, well, I don't know if that's exactly how he said it, but he said something. He's like, just don't, he goes, people need to be careful they're not buying their own stuff. You know what I mean? Like getting all, I might not be saying it. You know what I'm saying? Like, just don't be thinking you're like the, you know, like you're so great or so, anyway, yeah, it was just, you asked me that was the first thing that came to my mind, which is why I shared it to you. So I feel like I did good in a couple areas that, you know, I hadn't done it good in the past, you know, so, and you know how you know you did good is because people leave and you can sense how they're feeling, and then they thank you and they leave with action steps and things that they can do. And then I was just like, damn, I was telling my wife, you know, like I need to really do more of that. And I need to charge more, like a lot more, right? A lot more. Not, you know, not like, I remember when I first started, I was scared to charge. I remember I charged this guy $600. Like, cause I did it for a long time with Keller Williams, and I was making not much more. I was making a couple hundred, $250 at the end of the day. And I thought it was a big deal charging 600. And I remember I this client, this is about a year and a half now. He was paying me $600 a month. And at the end of the year, his business grew. He added 300,000 in revenue to his business through the strategies and the things that we held him accountable to. So, like, what is that worth? It's certainly worth. What would you pay for that? Would you pay 100,000? I'm betting most people would, right? If you said I can increase your business 300,000, you give me 100,000. I think most people would do that.
Well, yeah, they would. It's just that it's the outcome, right? Like this is why when people, before they make an investment, this is where their mindset comes into play, right? It's their belief system. Do they believe that if they invest in this product, person, service, that they're going to get that kind of ROI? Like that is the biggest. I mean, you're in sales, you know, right? Like obviously, a lot of people, when it comes to sales, it's a price thing. They're just looking at price. They're not looking at that long term. So like for us, you know, we sell, one of the things that we sell is our Dream Manager certification. So people are coming in, when we say the price, they're like, oh my gosh, that's for 2 days. I'm like,
what is it? The Dream Manager? Say it again.
Yeah, Dream Manager certification. So we actually certify life coaches that go back into an organization and they serve as the life coach for their people. And it's really to help employee engagement and morale. I mean, it helps you attract and retain great talent. And so when someone says that's what it costs for, it's 2 days, I'm like, oh no, it's the life of your business.
Life. It's the rest of your life.
Like it's your business. It's going to change. Those 2 days will change your life and your perspective and the way that you go about your life and your dreams and your goals. and it's going to help you with your team and your employees. So I'm like, it's actually we should charge more. So, but
Yeah.
it's such a belief system. So when people, this is why the best people in the world, and we know some of them because we've met some of them on Clubhouse that have said they spend hundreds of thousands of dollars on coaching every single year because they know that only by doing that will they fast forward, they won't have to go through all the steps that it would take to get to that place. Like they could definitely get those results, but maybe it'll take them 3 years instead of, or 5 years instead of 1 year to get the results, because working with the right people can help you that dramatically. But it's a belief thing.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
So what do you feel, you're in the coaching space. What do you feel stops people from doing what they love?
That's funny. What's his name asked me this yesterday. Chris. Well, he didn't ask me that exact question. He asked me, how do people keep moving forward when times get challenging? So it was a different question. Similar answer is when you're passionate about stuff, when you find something that you're really, really passionate about and you live that and you live in that. Right. And it's like we talked about earlier with creativity, right? Creativity, just being present in wherever you are. Earlier today, I had a gap in the day. So I went out and I hung out poolside with my daughters and my wife and just left my phone, left my phone inside and just was there and just experiencing it. And I think that is, that's really what it's about. But I think for most people, they settle. I'm dealing with a lady right now. She wants to move to Florida, but she's been in her house for 47 years. And she's like, oh my God, I couldn't leave my house and I'm stuck with it. Well, okay, but you said you want to go to Florida, right? Oh my God, that would be my dream. Okay, well, then you're going to let the house prevent you from oh my gosh, I don't know if I can. It just, like, sometimes people just got to get out of their own way and say, okay, how do you make the pain, like, here's what I'd say, the pain of not get, and I said this to her, I says, we're going to talk again next week, but I says, you need to figure out how the pain of not getting to Florida is going to be greater than the pain of giving up this house. That's what you need to focus on. And she's like, oh, I know. And I said, well, no, you don't know, like, write, journal, make a list. On one side, all the good things about going to Florida, and on the other side, all the things that aren't so great about. And then, you know what I mean? So thinking doesn't do anything, right? You can think about things all day, but at some point we have to, we have to do action, take actions and stuff. So I don't even know if I answered your question, but.
Well, you brought us into some good points, because I think that it's reminding me of what my dad will often, if I ever make a decision and then I backtrack where I think, oh, did I do the right thing? Right. Like, that's what happens. Like, especially a big decision, like a big move, right? You're thinking, if you do it, did I make the right decision? Did I do it? And my dad always says to me, he's like, Kate, you made the decision, move on. Like, once you make the decision, you don't look back. You just like keep going, and whatever is supposed to happen, like, you just make the best of whatever it is, right? Like, I find that so many people, and I think the older that we get, obviously we have a lot of experiences and we think, I should have done this, or I could have done that, or my life would have looked differently if I did this or that or the other thing. But for this woman, it's almost like, when we think about the regrets that we might have at the end of our life, it's the things that we didn't do, not the things that we did do. So it's like, hey, what would happen if she finally makes the decision to move to a place that she's been wanting to move? I mean, what's the worst case scenario? She doesn't like it and then she moves back. Like, that's the worst thing, really. It's not a huge deal.
Well, I feel like God put me for some reason in this lady's life to help her with this, more than just like somebody that needs to list their house. She was literally a lead through a lead service that we use. And I met with her and I've spoken with her like 3 times now. And that's it. That's a great question. I mean, one of the questions is really is like, what's the worst thing that could happen if you do this?
Yeah.
Just keep digging down on that. Okay. What else? What else? And what if that happens? What about it? But then you switch it. You get them, they're old, and then you say, okay, great. Now, what's the best thing that can happen? if you do this. Like, oh my God, I'll be in Florida, I'll be on the beach, and I'll be great. What else? Right. And so let's live into that. Let's not live into all the, the worst. And that's what a lot of people unfortunately do. We tend to focus on all the negativity and all the, so yeah, I mean,
Yeah. Keep it positive. I love that. That's a fun exercise. I feel like that's a great exercise for someone. So if you're listening and you're making a decision, that is a good exercise. What else? What else? What else? You just keep putting what's the worst case and then the best case. And think about it. Even it's not even your decision, David, and your energy shifted when you were like, oh, I'll be on the beach. Like your energy shifted when you were talking about the best case scenario, because it's like that's the fun stuff. And those things are possible. And so make your default the positive instead of the negative.
Yeah. Well, most of us aren't wired like that, to be honest with
correct.
you. So
that is
true.
True.
It's a gift. And I honestly, I'll be honest, I'm not wired like that. I've through my years and years of personal development and investing in so many trainings and spending $10,000 on this 2-day event and this and Tony Robbins and Grant Cardone. And it just, I've at least become aware. Like awareness, like, okay, that's not a positive thought. So right away, like this, right? Like before, I could hang with it for a while, or maybe for days. Now it's like, okay, that doesn't work. And I think that, that's part of the question you asked earlier, like path to mastery, right? It's like, you just get better, you get more aware. So here's a question somebody asked me, and I'd like to hear your answer on it. I struggled big time with it. Is where would you, you know what? Let me, in order to ask you this question, I got to ask it the right way. So I got to just pull something. Does you want to see if anybody on Clubhouse, does anybody on Clubhouse have a question for either Kate or me? Cause I
love that David cannot just let me run my own podcast.
I'm sorry.
No, you're
I'll
great.
do another one and just not say
No, you're great.
Yeah, I'm just trying. I want to ask you this
while
question.
you're pulling that up, David. I just want to say, because this something you triggered something in my mind. Because I heard, like a psychologist or somebody say something along the lines of your brain is wired to keep you safe, not to make you happy. And that to me was like, oh, this is true. We are wired for us to be safe. And so, of course, making the decision to step out of our comfort zone is going to be much harder for us. And it's a practice. We have to practice saying yes to those adventures, saying yes to the stuff that makes us uncomfortable. It's a daily practice. I don't know that anybody masters it. But then, I wonder, what would be really fun is to the first person I think of are Richard Branson and like Mark Cuban. I'm like, did they ever have fear of stuff? I mean, their fear is at a totally different level. They're making like $1 billion decisions.
Wasn't it? I don't know if it was Elon Musk, but I was listening to somebody at that level. I think it was Elon Musk. I don't know if he was on Tim Ferriss's podcast a bunch of years ago. I think he was. And Tim Ferriss was asking him these questions, and he was just saying, yeah, of course I'm scared, but I just do it anyway. Like imagine you acquire like hundreds of millions of dollars, and then you just take it all and invest it in something, and then like, how do you do that? And then lose it all? And now all of a sudden you went from being like 100 million, whatever the number is, right? And now all of a sudden you're like, you got no money. You're like, okay, I'm gonna start over from scratch. Like it takes the type of person that can pull that off. I don't know. It's almost subhuman. Yeah. It's like superhuman.
It is. Yeah.
Not subhuman, superhuman.
Those are that's at a totally different level. Well, you had Grant Cardone on your podcast. Grant's an interesting guy with big vision, big dreams, and does not seem to have a lot of fear in his life. But what were some of the lessons that you learned from Grant? And you're certified through his sales process. So what have you learned from Grant?
I think one of the things I learned a lot of really good sales strategies from Grant, to be honest with you. I'm sorry about that. I learned a lot of really great sales strategies from Grant. Great salesman, really great salesman, motivator. I would say because he's fearless. He's fearless. That's what I would say. He just doesn't care. He's going to show up. He's gonna say what he wants to say. He's going to ask 1,000 times. I think probably the biggest thing I learned from him is there's two things. Always agree. Like this is such common sense, especially for me. I've been selling for 38 years, but when you say it out loud, like you always agree with people, like always get in agreement with people, right? Like you could completely, like somebody could say something and you're like, that makes no sense in the world, but you can still be in agreement with them. Like, you know what? I can actually appreciate that you feel that way. Right. Like I understand that you believe that 100%. So, because what do we typically do as salespeople or as people in general is we make people wrong, right? We say, oh God, that makes no sense. Let me explain this to you. And instead of just saying, okay, yeah, you're right. Crap, I get it. And I'll tell you, it's a little thing, but it was one of the biggest things that helped me to be able to move people even at a higher level. It's just never be in disagreement with somebody. Even like the lady we were talking about earlier, like I think she's nuts, but I'm just, okay, I get it. I see how you feel that way. Crap, if I was in the same house 46 years, I'd feel the same way too, and so
people want to feel connected. They want to feel known. They want to feel seen and heard.
Yeah. And then the other thing he said that really stuck with me, there's a lot because he's a great, like I love sales. I love sales training and sales, but he says no one thing kills a deal. This is the grantism, is no one thing kills a deal. So if you're listening to this right now and you're in sales, no one thing will kill your deal. What does that mean? It means friggin' go for it. Okay. Ask again. And what he's saying is, if they don't go with you, they weren't going to go with you anyway. They're not going to not go with you because you asked one more time or not do so. So I don't know. I just love that philosophy. Maybe it's not for everybody, but for me, it just made a lot of sense. And and sometimes if I get in my head, like it's a perfect example, like the lady that that I was talking about earlier. Like when I met with her, she was started to sign paperwork and she's like, oh, I don't know. I don't know if I can do this. And so I slowed things down and I talked to her and I left with the paperwork signed anyway, even though she's not quite ready, but I have all the paperwork signed. If I would have left that house, the odds of me ever getting paperwork signed from her would probably zero. So now I can help her through the situation because I didn't give up on her. I stayed with her. And I knew in my head too. I says, if I leave, she's going to go with somebody else. She's going to list with a different agent because she's interviewing agents. So I did what I needed to do to make sure I got the agreement signed. Now I'll work with her through this whole process. I don't care if it takes 6 months, a year, whatever, 3 years. It makes no difference. When she's ready, right? Or next week.
It's so interesting because everything is, I feel like you can relate everything back to the creative process, right? It's like you keep showing up, you keep doing the work, you put yourself out there. Like even as you're talking, it's sales, but it's your creativity. It's the projects that you're working on, right? Like for anyone that's a creator, if you're a writer, if you're a poet, if you do photography, whatever it is you're building, there's no reason to not do it. Like there's literally no reason. Like even if nothing comes of it, even if you submit your poem to publications to get published and nobody says yes, at least you put it out there. Yeah. Like at least you tried and put it into the world. Like, so that is what I love about what you're sharing. I mean, you're talking specifically about sales, but this is like, it's such a life principle too, because
but it's the same as if you're on Clubhouse and you want to say something, then just press the hand raise button and do it. And
yeah.
And you're going to feel like, I swear, I don't know when it was, about a year ago, I did that. I was in a room and I was moderating. I said, listen, somebody come up here, somebody that never, ever raises your hand. I want you to raise your hand right now. You know who you are. I'm talking to you. Raise your
Oh my
hand
gosh, I
right
do
now
the
and
same
come up
thing,
here.
David. I do the same thing.
Yeah. And then, and I said, and if you do it, it's going to be amazing. And then all of a sudden, someone raised their hand. They came up, they shared, and she was like, oh my God, this is my first time. I'm so nervous. And then at the end, she said, I feel amazing. No, it was so
Oh,
cool. She's like, I really feel amazing because it does. You just break. It's a breakthrough. It's
yeah.
breaking out of your comfort zone. It's expanding a little bit. That's what that's what we want, right? That's path to mastery. That's growth. That's becoming a better version of yourself. I mean, I don't know. I love that stuff.
Oh my gosh, David, this is why we're friends. Because I do the same thing in my segments, and I tell someone, and I do the same. I'm like, I'm talking to you. I'm talking to
Yeah,
you.
that's
And then
funny.
people have come up, and I ask people to share their dream. I tell them, I ask them to share one dream that they have. And there have been people that have unmiked and said, I can't believe I'm saying this. I've never said this out loud. And I want to, boom, whatever it was. And I'm like, oh my gosh, it's
Amazing.
amazing
Yeah.
to share it in a room of all those people because you put it out into the world. And then it's just that it seems like such a simple thing, but if it's hard for you to, when you do it, it's going to give you that confidence to do the next thing, to speak up, not on Clubhouse, but in the meeting.
That's right.
Or speak up with your boss or with a client, or to make that sales call, or whatever it is that you're doing in your career. So this is why it's so important for us to explore all of the things that we feel called to explore, not just in the work that we do, but also in the creative work that we do. You have written 2 books. And I'm so curious. I always love when I meet other authors. So you've written the Sales Playbook and Getting Your Quality of Life Back. What was the writing process like for you? Well, first of all, did you write the books? And
no, I had a ghostwriter for this book, the Sales Playbook, and it was an amazing experience, to be honest with you. Her name is Amelia Forzak, and she wrote my friend Jarek Robbins' book as well.
Oh, really?
Jarek's book is called Live It. He's a friend of mine. He's Tony's son.
Yeah.
Amazing experience. 10 months interviewing me weekly, going back and forth. So yeah, anybody that reads it says like they can hear me when they read it, which is wild.
That's awesome.
Like she just did a fantastic job. She's a professional. Cost me 26 grand, I think, overall to do that. Great investment. And then my second book is what's called a 90-minute book. Do you know who Dean Jackson is?
Yeah.
I used Dean Jackson's company for the second book, 90-minute book. And it's a nice little book. I love it. I love both of my books. So yeah, I mean, I didn't technically write it myself, but I went through the process. And for me, that was a huge shortcut because honestly, I was writing this book I was writing for 10 years. And I was like 1 chapter and a half done. So I would be finishing the book at 99 years old if I kept at my pace.
Oh my
gosh. I just hired somebody and said, okay, let's get this done. And you put up the money and that's the accountability, right? You just do what you got to do. And yeah, then we got a book out and it was awesome. And I had to do a book tour. And that's honestly why I started a podcast was I wanted to get more people familiar with my book. And then I just ended up loving podcasting.
Yeah, it's super fun. And you've had some really interesting guests too. All right, David, I have 2 more questions for you. One.
So I'm going to hook you up with some of my guests though. So let me know what guests you want.
I know.
I can connect you with their people. So
I know you've had some really, I would love to interview Mel Robbins. She is such an interesting person.
I can't even get Mel for a second interview.
I know. She's like,
I still bug her. I have her cell phone number and she doesn't.
You do? That's so funny.
Yeah. She's from Boston. I didn't even know that. Just coincidentally, she lives in Boston. Well, she has a house in Boston. Do
you have any, who are some of your dream guests?
Right now, definitely, I want Joe Rogan, Tim Ferriss, because I'm still intimidated by Tim.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah, and then and this new kid, Lex Friedman is a
He's not
beast.
new.
I know he's new to me. I know
Yeah,
he
he's
just.
like,
I know it's so funny you say that, right? He's new to me. But he's been around a long time. Yeah, that's what I hear. I don't mean new guy, but yeah, he's no joke.
yeah, no, he is
I reached
no
out to
joke.
him a couple times. He doesn't respond, but I'm gonna keep reaching out.
That's what you got to do.
Yeah.
That's what you got to do. Keep reaching out. If you could gain one skill overnight, like,
Who's your dream guest though? Before we do that.
oh, I was like, I knew you were going to ask me. I So I would love to interview Anne Lamott, who is a writer,
Okay.
or like Margaret Atwood. I really want to interview Dr. Huberman. I don't know. He's been on like Tim Ferriss's podcast, and I think Joe Rogan as well. I would love to interview Adam Grant. He would be amazing.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I would do if I could interview Ryan Holiday. Like,
Yeah. I bet you could interview all these guys if you put your mind to it. You could interview. You definitely could.
Yeah. No, it's really, oh, and I just picked up this this new book. It's sitting right here. It's a book of essays, which I think it would be interesting to interview this author. Sloane Crosley is her name, and it's just like a book of essays, but she would be interesting. I know that I could. I think my podcast journey has been interesting because I think I was trying to find my way of what is this show? Like, who is it for and what is this about, kind of thing. Like, I had this one idea when I started it. I started it with a co-host, and we were doing it together, and then he left, and then it kind of turned into something else. And so I was like, "Oh, I can make it whatever I want." And so, as my podcast is called Create for No Reason, I was like, well, I'm just going to keep creating and see what happens. And so I've had some really interesting conversations. I love conversations that are very specific around the creative process and writing and photography and just people who are in that world a lot more. But I also love talking about entrepreneurship and business and how it's so important to be creative in those arenas as well. So, but yeah, I think that I haven't done a great job of writing down my dream list of guests and really reaching out to them, but I think now I am ready to be more intentional about that. I mean, fortunately, I've just met some really interesting people like yourself on Clubhouse and some other places. I've interviewed a couple people that I've met on TikTok, and so, but yeah, these are people I would love to connect with at some point. But
so what's an action? Who's someone who would
look
be the next
at
guest?
David coaching me.
Who would be the next guest do you want to interview though? Let's take one.
Let's pick one. Who would I really, really want to have on my show next? I would love, you know what? I'm going to say, oh my gosh, I would love to have Ryan Holiday.
Okay.
He would be interesting.
Ryan Holiday. Awesome. I apologize for not knowing who that is, but
you would love him. Yeah. You would really like him. His books are he wrote The Obstacle is the Way. He wrote Stillness is the Key. Ego is the Enemy.
Ooh, I love that one. Ego is the enemy.
In fact, I love sharing one of the things because he helps people he used, I don't know if he still does, but
he's an author.
Yeah, he's an author. He used to help people, I don't know if he still does, but market their books. And I remember him saying one time, the title of your book, he says, the title of the book is so important. He said, I want every book that I write and every book that I help to market would be a title that if somebody just saw the title and never opened up the book, it would change them in some way.
Oh, yeah.
And I loved that. I never forgot that because I thought, ooh, that is really good.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah,
it does. Absolutely. It does. 100%. Now I'm like thinking of like my true dream. You know what, David?
You know what? I was just going to say, I mean, I maybe like what's one thing you could do to right now, or like when we end this, towards getting Ryan Halliday on your show?
Well, I'm going to go one step further, because now you have me kind of excited about the guests. The one of the first things I'm going to do is I'm actually going to write down my dream list, like my
Okay.
dream guest list, because after I write down my dream guest list, it's going to be really easy for me to look at that list and say, who do I know that is connected, or who is the first person on this list that I have easier access to, that I could like make happen. So then from there, I'm going to start to make those
Okay,
calls
cool.
or reach out to people. So that's
I
my
like your
next step,
thinking.
coach.
I like your thinking there. Yeah, that's good.
Oh
Good,
my
good. I
gosh.
love
I
it.
love it. Well, see, I hope that somebody got value out
But
of
when are you gonna do that? When will that be
look,
done?
a true
When will you
coach.
create your list and then
A true
select your
coach.
one?
Okay, so today is Tuesday. I'm going to have my dream list done by Thursday, and I'm going to have contacted 5 people by Friday.
5. Wow, good for you. And what's gonna get in the way of you doing that?
What is going to get away? David, nothing is getting in my way of doing that. I'm doing it. It's just happening. I'm already
Awesome.
thinking of the time frame in which I have time on my calendar to make this happen.
All right, awesome. Okay, well, we'll stop there. But that was
All
good.
right,
That was fun.
David, this is what a coaching session is like. So if you need some good coaching, now you can find
Oh,
David.
we go a lot deeper than that too.
Oh
But yeah,
no, I know.
we're gonna create some accountability. But
That's just
I'm gonna let you off the
scratching.
hook. But
That's
yeah,
just
good
scratching the
job.
surface.
So by Thursday and by Friday, you're in touch with 5. 5 might even be a little much, to be honest with you.
No,
5, you like 5? I
I
would
like
say just
5.
make sure you do the 1.
No, I
Right?
like the
I
5.
would challenge you to say, no matter what, I'm going to get the 1. But yeah, if you do 5, that's
No
great.
matter what, I'll get, because I'm an overachiever, David.
Okay,
I need
good.
to overachieve.
Good. I love it.
Once I'm in the mode, I'll like be in the place of, if I reach out to one person, I'm gonna be like, just reach out to this person and that person. Because going back to what you said, why not? The worst thing they're gonna do is not respond to me, or they're gonna respond and say, I can't. In fact, I just reached out to somebody that I did want to have on the episode, and I asked her like a year ago, and her assistant was like, oh, she's not really taking interviews, but like, you can ask us in the future. So I went back and asked, and he said again, oh, she's really not, but you can ask again in the fall. And I'm
Yeah.
like, cool, so I'll ask again in the fall.
Yeah.
All right, this is not about me, this is about you.
Here's a cool tool though for you and for people listening. Are you familiar with Boomerang?
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So what I do is I take those emails, and if they say ask me a fall, I just boomerang it to like September. So then the email shows up again in my inbox, and then I
Yep.
respond, and I'll just keep going until like Gary V was 2.5 years.
Wow.
And a lot of money spent and a lot of his events and stuff, and handing him my book while he was on stage, like walking up to the middle as he was in speech on stage, walked to the front of the stage and said, here, Gary, this is for you.
Oh my
And
gosh.
he took the book and held it like the last 10 minutes of his talk in New York. So yeah, so
That's
do whatever
awesome.
it takes.
Do whatever it takes.
Do whatever it takes.
All right, David, I always ask my guests at the end of the episode, what is one thing, and you'll love this because you're a coach, what is one thing that the listeners can do in 10 minutes or less to help them live a more creative and fulfilling life?
10 minutes or less daily, or just 10 minutes or less one time?
Well, it's one time, but it can be daily, but in their mind it's daily, but at least we're just giving them, just do this right now.
Good question. I 10 minutes or less. One thing to create a what's tell me again.
So what is one thing that we can do in 10 minutes or less to help? How about, I'm going to say it a different way. What is one thing that we can do in 10 minutes or less to spark our creativity?
Oh. Honestly, I think just do something that you don't normally do. Just get uncomfortable. go to a Starbucks and just, I don't know, talk to random people. Go in Starbucks and do 20 jumping jacks in the middle of everybody. Just something that's going to get you out of your comfort zone. I think that would be my opinion, is just get out of your comfort zone. I think that would definitely spark creativity in most people.
Awesome. I love that. Well, David, thank you so much for being on the show. This was so fun.
Yeah, it was awesome. Thank you. Definitely.
And where is the best way for people to connect with you?
Yeah, right there, davidhill.link. Everything is there. Just about everything. Yeah, my books, my social, my podcast, everything's linked to davidhill.link. And yeah, all my socials there. I do a lot on, I'm actually focusing a lot on LinkedIn. Actually, that was another thing I learned recently, is LinkedIn. Going back to your older question, LinkedIn. I'm spending a lot more energy on LinkedIn these days.
Oh,
So,
good.
yeah.
Oh, yeah. That makes sense for your industry.
Yeah. So, but yeah, LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn. David I. Hill on LinkedIn. My socials for everything is David I. Hill for everything.
What's your middle name?
Isaac.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
All right. Well, David, you're awesome. I will chat with you soon on Clubhouse. And thank you all for being here. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was awesome. Appreciate you.